So, Modern Horizons 3, like its predecessors, is overflowing with references to older cards.
And today we're going to explore just a narrow slice of those, culminating in a card that doesn't just reference older Magic cards, but is instead just the latest in a chain of gaming culture references going back 50 years.
So specifically, we're going to look at creatures who have been blessed by Emrakul. It's kind of like completion, but with more insanity.
Tentacles now! So, it's not arbitrary that this is what we're focusing on, EmraCool's prize winners.
Yeah. Modern Horizons sets don't really tell new stories. Instead, Wizards uses them to flesh out the characters, events, and planes that we already know and love. Like Double-Sided Ajani and Grist, which tell the origin stories of those planeswalkers.
At least that's how these sets have worked until now.
Yes, the creatures we're going to focus on today, they've all been transformed by Emrakul's presence. A process we got extremely familiar with in Eldritch Moon. But most of them are from planes that, as far as the story has explained to us, the Eldrazi have not visited.
Yeah. So, before we get a bunch of corrections in the comments, it's true that we have no idea where the Eldrazi were before they were imprisoned on Zendikar, but that was like 6,000 years ago.
So now, presumably, the Eldrazi constitute a sort of cosmic Roomba of the multiverse. They go around cleaning up and recycling planes that have kind of run their course. Yeah. That role implies that they've been all over the multiverse in the distant past, but the cards we're going to look at today are pretty clearly the converted versions of creatures that have appeared relatively recently, like the past 300-ish years.
Right. And if the Eldrazi did their thing to a plane, there's nothing left there that was there before their arrival.
Right. And since they got out, the story's been pretty clear about where they've been and what they've been doing. Ulamog and Kozilek were defeated on Zendikar, and shortly after, Emrakul showed up on Innistrad and ends up imprisoned in the moon.
Right, so what does this mean? How are creatures getting EmraCooled where EmraCool hasn't been? I've heard people assert that Modern Horizons 3 isn't necessarily canon. It's more of a what-if scenario. And that seems like an easy explanation, but when I went looking for any official statement to that effect, all I found was a resounding from Mark Rosewater.
And I kind of loved that.
Right? Are Modern Horizons sets canon to the Magic universe? I'm not sure. Mark Rosewater would know the answer, so
He should know the answer.
He may just not want to tell us because he wants us to have this kind of hype and conspiracy theory conversation.
Maybe we're supposed to discuss this.
Yeah.
In this way.
In which case we are obliging.
Yeah, so in that case we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. So anyway, this kind of begs the question, as far as what's going on here, did Emrakul actually visit a bunch of planes during Battle for Zendikar before she went to Innistrad? It seems unlikely because, spoilers, this includes Dominaria, if this is the first time we're hearing about it.
Yeah, we would know by now that this had happened in the story.
One would think.
But the other possibility seems to be, is this the future? Is this like happening either in the present or about to happen or sometime down the line? Emrakul's face card in this set, the new Emrakul, is Emrakul the World Anew. It's even the key art, I think.
I think so.
It looks like she's coming out of the moon, which would imply this is something that happened after she was imprisoned in the moon. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of this.
Yep.
But it's fun.
Yeah. All right, well, let's look at some specific cards. Yes. First of all, the Warped Tusker. And this, to me, seems incredibly clear that this is based on the Krozen Tusker. And Krozen means from Kroza, and that's a big forest in Dominaria where the Mirari saga started with Kamal and all that. And that was like 300 years ago in the Magic story. So if we're looking for reasons to assert, oh, this is some other time and place, and Emrakul did this in the distant past, I don't think Krozens existed. And look how similar these cards are. Same power, similar toughness, about the same casting cost. The art is clearly mirroring each other. Cycling for 2 and a green. Does anything else have cycling for 2 and a green in all of Magic?
I don't know. This one feels pretty like a very obvious
Yeah.
connection. I think we're supposed to make this connection if
Yeah.
you've been playing or have any familiarity with some of the older sets. This seems like a pretty easy slam dunk.
Yeah. And there are a couple other Dominarian critters who look like they have been augmented.
Yes, we have the basking brood scale, which we think looks pretty similar to the basking root walla.
Yeah.
And again, has kind of similar activated ability.
Yeah. It's a little bigger. I like the fact that they picked this one just for Modern Horizons 3
Yeah.
in general, because by virtue of being a Madness Zero creature, it was actually relevant at, like, I don't know if it was like a tournament winning card, but it was a card that was kind of big and important and well known in its time. Whereas I don't know if Crows and Tusker was. Like, for some reason, I recognized it immediately.
Yeah.
I knew that's what it was called, but it seems a lot less iconic than the Root Walla to me. And then the most mechanically interesting one from Dominaria is easily the Siege Gang Commander turned Spawn Gang Commander.
Yeah, very few things make 3 tokens. There's only there's lots of cards that do that effect, but it's pretty rare to see that on a creature that comes in and makes.
Yeah, I think
more.
there's like 4 or 5.
Yeah, there's not many.
Yeah.
There's plenty of creatures that create things when they die, or just create things like as a sorcery speed effect, like just sorceries that make 3 token creatures.
What's the Innistrad spell that has flashback? I think it makes 2 spirits each time.
Yeah, it makes a couple of spirits each time. There's a white card that does that makes like a couple of soldier tokens.
Oh,
like
the samurai,
yeah,
the 3 samurai.
That's another
in
one.
Kamigawa.
That's a pretty common thing at
yeah.
that like sorcery, make a few creatures.
Yeah.
But I think there's like 4 or 5 total in the entirety of the game where a creature enters and also brings 2 or 3 friends.
Yeah. And they tend, I think, they're certainly extremely powerful in limited.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like, oh, I went from having nothing to now I have like 4
these
bodies. Yeah, now
rectangles.
I got all these rectangles.
Yeah, and the Siege Gang Commanders and then Spawn Gang Commanders, thing they can do with them is just phenomenal. You just sack these little rectangles and do damage to things. That's great.
Yeah, I love that it comes with its own ammunition.
Yeah.
It's fun.
But I think this one is also iconically from Dominaria because it was originally in, is that Scourge, I think, that had it was part of the Legion Scourge.
Yeah.
Onslaught Legion Scourge, or however that worked. But then they got reprinted in Dominaria.
Yeah.
The set Dominaria.
So...
yeah, that's very, very much from Dominaria. I mean, it's a goblin thing. Wizards could put a goblin effect on pretty much any plane because they're on most planes, but this is where they have reprinted it, is on this plane. So it seems, once again, like Emrakul's messing stuff up on Dominaria. That's interesting. All right, shall we move on to the next plane?
Yeah, so the next one is Null Drifter, which is a pretty clear reference to Mole Drifter.
Yeah.
Which is from Lorwyn.
This card, the Mole Drifter, is one that I've only come to appreciate really recently. For whatever reason, it took me 28 years or something of playing this game to start really appreciating the power of draw a card. And when I saw Mole Drifter and I heard people talk about how great it was just over the past like decade, you know, it's become an iconic card. It's never looked that impressive to me. It's so expensive, 4 and a blue for a 2/2 flyer, but I have begun to appreciate this is a modular card. This is 2 and a blue, draw 2, which in some circumstances is just solid on its own. And late game, you get that and the flyer. That's really neat. And so now we have this more expensive but colorless version of the same effect, which also has Annihilator and is
Annihilator.
real chunky. So I'm really hoping to play some Null Drifters in limited on Arena.
Yeah, this thing looks cool.
Yeah. But the Mole Drifter is just so obviously of Lorwyn. It's very fantastical. It's an elemental. Elementals were a supported creature type there. And it's just, there's been two other arts, I think. One of them's a Secret Lair.
Yeah.
That's like the one the kids drew. So that has nothing to do with canon anywhere.
Yeah.
I forget what the other one was, but I didn't get the impression that it placed Muldrifters in any other plane. So I think this is clearly EmraCool visited Lorwyn. Mm-hmm. Is it Lorwyn now, or when it changed to its midnight?
To Shadowmoor?
Yeah, Shadowmoor. Is it still the plane of Lorwyn, or does it become the plane of Shadowmoor? We have some research to do, I guess.
Yeah. Have to answer that question for ourselves.
Next,
we've got some Quaddles to look at. This set features a card called Hope Ender Quaddle, which is an Eldrazi snake. All of the Quaddles are snake-type creatures.
Yeah. And
there's not a lot of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Quaddle apparently just means serpent or snake in Nahuatl, which is the Aztec language. And of the now 4 Quaddles that Wizards has made, 3 of them have wings.
Yes.
Which seems to be just kind of a little mix-up. This kind of harkens back to the, they redid all the art for what were they in the cons of Tarkir, the tiger demons that...
the Rakshasa.
The Rakshasa.
Yeah.
WotC was like, we're gonna redo this because we've decided when D&D made this twist on this actual, part of a culture or mysticism, legends, I don't know what to...
Folklore.
Yeah, folklore. Yeah. When D&D kind of made this twist on the folklore, that wasn't the best move on our part to just keep rolling with that, so we're gonna roll that back. So I'm really surprised, because Quetzalcoatl is a deity, right?
Yeah.
And Quetzalcoatl is the winged serpent.
Is a winged serpent. And all of these have wings.
Yeah.
They're all very obviously winged snakes.
Yeah. But the first one here, the winged Coatl, was from Alara. Which also just seems kind of funny now that we have Ixalan, where obviously that's where it should be from.
Yeah. But we don't have any Quaddles on Ixalan, at least in Magic.
Well, we have the god.
We have the god, but the god is neither is not typed as a snake. Yeah. Visually, it's obviously a winged serpent, but aside from that, we don't have any Quaddle snake-type creatures from Ixalan.
But now we have 3. Yeah, just around, and 2 of them
just
are in
out there.
Horizon sets,
and they're pretty cool. The Ice Fang Quaddle is neat.
Yeah.
I think, except for the Ice Fang and the Winged Quaddle both have Death Touch or have Death Touch situationally. The Ice Fang Quaddle has Death Touch as long as you control at least 3 other snow permanents. Yeah. And then the Hope Ender has Devoid. I think. Yeah, 3 out of 4 of these have Flash, so there's some overlap if we kind of made a Venn diagram of what do Quaddles have in common?
And I think for the other ability, they just went, oh, what's a blue ability? And it's
sure, because they are all in blue or green or a combination.
Yeah, so it's just the mana leak type. What I first thought, that's the mana leak effect, but I don't know. What I first thought was it's the mana tide effect. Like, that's white. No, this Force Spike came along first. And it just kind of gets into mixed up history of are taxing effects blue or white. And I know this is getting way off on a tangent, but then I found out that Propaganda came out in 97. And what's the white version?
Ghostly Prison?
Ghostly Prison was like 2004 or something. It was so much later.
Yeah.
And to me, I just think, those are both really old and they've both been doing that for a long time. But no, there was a clear decision at some point. Then I think you can find references to it on like the Magic Wiki about when they decided to change the philosophy and where it fit in the color pie. And the blue would only be able to tax things as part of a counterspell. But that's, of course, exactly what's happening here. So it is still quite in character. And we still have every limited environment practically has something along these lines. It's a counterspell unless you pay 2 or 3 or something. So, yeah, that fits. Anything else you want to say about the Quaddle?
No,
Do you want to say Quaddle?
Quaddle.
It's fun.
It is a fun word.
Okay. Moving on.
The next one. So the next one is Sowing Mycospawn, which looks like a reference to Mycosynth Wellspring, which is an artifact from...
Not a creature artifact.
Yeah, not a creature artifact, just an artifact. Was this first printed in a commander set, or is
this is from New
originally
Phyrexia.
from New Phyrexia?
Yeah.
Okay, Because I know the flavor text references New Phyrexia in one of the printings, but New Phyrexia card, which this looks pretty blessed by Emrakul here.
Yeah, but the house that the new one's growing in front of looks like an Innistrad house.
Okay, more of an Innistrad.
So I think that's shifted. So this is less a case for Emrakul actually being other places, but I mean, like, it's clearly that card. It has a really similar effect where you search up a land and it's a Myco something, and I don't know. I think it's a really strong reference. It's clearly what this is a callback to.
Yeah, the more we look at these, the more I kind of feel like these are in-universe references more so than clues that, like, maybe Emrakul visited other planes. That's just a more fun conspiracy theory, I think. I want to believe that Emrakul has gone traveling.
She's loose!
That she's loose, that she's out doing stuff. Like, that's what I want to believe, but...
She's vacationing.
Emrakul's vacation. Yeah. I love that.
Oh yeah, especially when you title it that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot too. All right, well here's one that's actually just in Innistrad.
Yes.
But I still think it's neat.
Yes. So this is the... Let me see, I'm gonna mispronounce this guy. The Silberland Snapper.
Yeah, that's the Innistrad.
That's the one that we're looking at from Innistrad. And then the blessed version is Snapping Voidcraw. Which references Nephalia. So I think this is pretty clearly...
In the flavor text,
yes, it references Nephalia in the flavor text. It's now an Eldrazi turtle.
Yeah, so when I was just looking up the art, I was like, okay, that's obviously that. They're kind of from the same perspective and everything. Case closed. But then I was looking at the rest of the card, and the size of this creature is way different. The abilities are very different.
They do very different things.
And then I thought, you know what this resembles? Meld.
Oh yeah, Meld is a thing.
Yeah, I started drafting at the end of Shadows over Innistrad, going into Eldritch Moon where Meld existed, and it was only 3 instances of Meld, which across 6 cards you have to have a pair for each Meld. So it was like Graph Rats and the Midnight Scavengers, and I actually did that in draft a few times and thought it was so cool. And then the others were, Brazella?
Yeah.
Which is impossible to get in draft because it's a mythic and a rare. And then there are a couple of uncommons for the Handwear Battlement and turns into the Writhing Township. And it's cool too.
It is cool. I feel like that's one of those things that, like, it's just fun to be able to pull it off.
Yeah. Even once.
Yeah.
I know we both had that goal for Bro to get one of the Planeswalker combos.
Yes. But... I got which one was it? It was the Dragon Engine.
You got Mishra.
I got Mishra and the Dragon Engine on Arena. Yeah, it didn't happen for me in real life, but it happened for me in Arena.
So cool. But so there are 2 specific cards that I found that make sense to have been melded. One is the Triskaidekaphile. It's a 1/3, like the Voidcraw, with the similarly costed draw a card.
Yeah.
And then I found the Ulvenwald Captive, who flipped into the Ulvenwald Abomination, which tap for the 2 colorless. So none of it's exactly lines up, but it looks real similar. And
yeah, I kind of imagine when they're doing these sets that, I guess, what was it? M25 was all reprints, if I remember right. I don't remember if there were any new cards in that set. I think it was kind of a retrospective.
Right.
So I imagine with some of these modern sets, it does feel like they probably go back through some of these sets and look for things like what are things that we want to reference? What are things that we want to call back to? And this does very much feel like they've looked at this set, or these sets, because Triskaidekaphile is actually from Midnight Hunt.
Yeah.
We've got some stuff here that we were looking at from, like, Shadows, Eldritch Moon, we've got Emrakul in the mix. So I very much imagine that there's a lot of just combing through these things and kind of looking at stuff that might be fun or interesting to introduce to Modern or combine in a new way.
Yeah.
Like we were saying with Meld. Like, what's something that we could look at in a new way that maybe hasn't appeared quite that way in a card before, or hasn't appeared with Devoid. There's not a ton of those cards comparatively.
There are a ton of double face cards in this set, but putting a Meld card in seems like a big cost design-wise, because suddenly you've got to make sure there's enough of the commons that you can get both halves with some frequency and everything.
That seems like
I do not blame them for not actually doing it, but I like that this feels like a callback to that.
It does.
All right, and the last one, the one we teased at the beginning, the 50 years of references, is one we've actually talked about in a video before.
We have. This is the Wumpus Aberration, an Eldrazi beast that is pretty clear reference to the hunted Wumpus.
Right, and when we brought that up before, I was ignorant of its true history.
Yeah,
but
since then we have learned of
Yeah.
its origins.
so the Hunted Wumpus is actually a reference to a game called Hunt the Wumpus. And there was a graphical version eventually, but the original version of Hunt the Wumpus was from 1973. 73. And it was a text-based adventure. So there are no graphics. I mean, this is a time before computers really had graphics. This was
graphical
literally
interface
text only.
was very limited.
Yeah, but you can find a quote from the designer of that was throwing so much shade at the game he was referencing when he built that, where he was just incredibly judgmental about all these simple games that had been based on 10 by 10 grids, and he was going to do something crazy like a dodecahedron. And so Hunt the Wumpus is, in fact, you navigating rooms which are at the points of a dodecahedron, which you just have to like map out on paper or understand academically, because all you have is words on the screen.
I kind of miss that era of things,
Yeah.
because I totally off topic, but the first time I played, like the first console video game I played was Legend of Zelda on the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yeah.
And so internet, strategy guides, me and my dad would actually like draw out the dungeon maps on paper from trial and error.
Absolutely. I did the same thing, but
yeah.
especially in the second Zelda game where there are all these crazy cave systems.
Yeah, we had all these maps that we just like hand drew. It's kind of cool that this references that era of gameplay.
Yeah. But in any case, the game that Hunt the Wumpus was based on was
this goes back even further.
Yeah, it was real, not a big time lapse, but Mugwump was a game, and I have the source code for this that I can put on the screen, because it was not published on a disc or anything, it was published in a magazine, and it's like, here are the 60 lines you can just type into your computer, and then you can run it after entering the source code, and you can play this game where you try and basically play Minesweeper. That's what Mugwump was. Minesweeper on a 10 by 10 grid, where you knew that there were 4 mugwumps or mines. And so I tried to follow it back further from there and find out what's a mugwump. And I'm afraid the trail is kind of run cold. The word mugwump is used to refer to a cryptid, but that word wasn't really used for it much until the late 70s, after this game came out. Maybe this game influenced that. I don't know. But there was also a band called the Mugwumps, and they might have been referencing a political party from the late 1800s called the Mugwumps, but I don't really think so. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. But maybe Mugwump was just a funny word.
I mean, it is a funny word. I think it's still a funny word.
Yeah. So, in any case, we got from this 60-line computer game, Minesweeper variant, Mugwump in 72 or 73, to the Wumpus Aberration.
Yep.
That's the path.
And that's evolution.
Yeah. Games.